So I'm working on this shot here, and it's not really like a shot, it's more or less a practice. But what I'm going to try to replicate is boiling water, right? It's kind of complex if we look at it. So normally, what I would have done, or like a rookie would have done, is to just remember what it's like boiling water. We just know that bubbles rupture from the surface of the water. If we really want to go in depth, we'll have bubbles come from inside the water and rise up, and that's cool and all. But to really sell the point of realism and our attention to detail, we should probably start collecting some reference, right? So what I wanted to show is basically what it's like to collect reference for an effect shot. So this is something that I'm working on, so I'll just show what I see, right? And the first thing that I see is that water is not coming from just the surface of the water here. It's actually coming from like this edge over here. If you go to the, it's actually coming from like this edge here, and they're moving their way. Once they hit the surface, they move their way to different locations around the pot, right? So if we keep our eye on that rim, seems like they're getting sourced from over here, but leading their way into here, right? So if we keep going, we could see that a lot of the bubbles are actually kind of split. So all the bubbles are forming over here, and there's not much bubbles coming from over here, right? There's not that much. It's kind of bland, but they still are coming in. So actually, something that I also am seeing is that there's big bubbles over here, and then smaller bubbles over here as they start moving into kind of like this vortex area where it kind of looks like, if you keep looking, it looks like the bubbles are getting sucked in and more bubbles are coming out from up top, right? And also at the same time, while those are getting sucked in, these are coming back up, but also these are forming in on itself, kind of like forming a little mushroom cloud. Which, if we get stuff like that, that will give a crazy amount of realism into our effects. And if we play it back, we can confirm that they're getting in. So to me, while the bubbles are erupting on the surface, we're getting that rolling over here. Uh, those are only the edges, and that main form of detail and animation is coming from this area right here. So now that I have kind of the motion that I want, I can start looking at how I'll be achieving like process like this. And to me, it seems like the bubbles here aren't actually popping. Uh, just off of memory, I always thought that bubbles, that when something boils, is that it would rise to the surface and pop. But it seems to me like they're getting formed here, but their bubbles are actually moving to the center and then into here. And that's really important because now I'm thinking a good way to do this is if I had bubbles sourced from this edge, I can have them big. I can make a vortex in like a pop sim and just have those bubbles move into here and move them into like this little vortex, and then I can convert those into a volume and use that as a collision for a pop, or it's not for a pop, for our flip. Maybe that'll work. Let's see. Other ways is we could maybe we could just write a force into our flip, and we can just have maybe we could write a vortex that would bring this water in here while this water comes out, because it really does seem like that is the main motion. And then we could do the rest of these bubbles afterwards. I don't know. We would start going to the R&D process from here, but at least we have an understanding of what the motion is for this, and that's really useful. It's really really important to get ref, and yeah, I'll probably show some others some other reference that I can grab. So just 1 second. So I'm on YouTube right now, and let's just say I wanted to get reference of a destroying building. It's an easy thing to get reference for, right? But I just wanted to show some details that can be missed when we don't look at reference, right? So if we go back to about this building, right? A lot of times when you just have a destruction shot, it would probably have like this chunk of the building just falling down, or it'll be like everything falls down simultaneously, or there's like no breakup between it. But in reality, destruction breaks up in very almost predictable ways. I don't want to say predictable because that means we wouldn't need ref, but like everything happens and you can see that it's happening, right? So if we play this, like that looks very cool, right? That obviously is real, but if we were to take a look and try to replicate that, there's a lot of things that I notice here, and I'm going to. So this I was using a website for the previous thing, but sometimes I like using the snipping tool when just for like something fast or whatever. So if we play back here a little bit, we can see that right along here, right at first. Let's bring up the snipping tool. I'll just take a picture of this. Right, we can see that this half all along here breaks first, right? That's fine. Like a lot of people always have like parts of the building breaking first or whatever. You can time that, but we also see that just because this half breaks first doesn't mean nothing over here also breaks. We can start seeing that smoke is forming over here. This part is also starting to sag. Just because you're timing things doesn't mean that only that thing breaks at that time. Everything should be affected, and that's really important for something organic, and that's a very nice attention to detail. Right, so if we continue, this is really, really important because if we go to our snipping tool, if we go to our snipping tool here and take a new screenshot, we can see that we can start actually seeing where the true breaks are, and we can see by the smoke. So the biggest one is right here, right? This buildings, when they collapse, they kind of like implode on each other. So instead of stuff falling off, a lot of ones that I've seen, especially by like rookie destruction artists, they would grab like this piece right here and it'll just kind of like topple over, or oops, or they would get like a bunch of small pieces like pushing out and falling over and have like debris all over the place. And to be honest, that's very interesting, right? But when we're doing photoreal effects, if we look at a reference, we can see that the building's actually imploding on each other. So this part is coming straight down, which is forcing the rest of these pieces over here to push out like that. And that gives us a real nice sense of destruction. And on top of that, because of that force, that's where we're getting pieces like this one that I showed before breaking off, or we can see where the smoke is right along here. There's a crack right along there. And all of these pieces are starting to get, in our destruction terms, woke. So that's what's triggering all this sand, or all the smoke, right? And if we keep going, this is a really, really big one for me that I really like looking at. Because if we also take this, we can notice that this smoke is hanging. It's not falling down. It's not rising. It's kind of just hanging there. And that's really, really important too, because when it comes, because this smoke is taking up a majority of the shot. Like we don't even see the building destruction anymore. All eyes are on the smoke, so we have to make sure that the smoke is setting the nice scale as well as moving properly, right? So it's really important to notice that it was actually just hanging there, except for this area, and we'll show that why if we move on a little bit in the YouTube video. We'll see why. But also another thing is, just because a building is really, really big scale doesn't mean it's going to shatter into microscopic pieces. If we look, I can actually still draw the outline of the building. Like there was a chunk that was like that. There's this chunk over here. That was something a little close. They're falling in big pieces, and that's really important to notice. And that's something that we would only be able to tell through reference, right? Let's continue on with the final part, right? If we look back to what we have here, that smoke is sitting here, and it's still there, right? If we, let's go to let's make a new one. Let's grab this. We can see that the smoke is still hanging here, but we're getting some nice, really nice animation all along this inside, kind of like it was creating a vortex where this the smoke is falling in on itself where the building used to be, and that's super important. That's something you'd only get by following the reference, by researching. And I just wanted to show everyone like how to bump up their FX to the next level by looking at reference, real life reference. So yeah, a lot of times what I would do is I'll just save as and just copy these photos, or I'll put them somewhere, just somewhere that I can reference because I know as I'm working, I'm going to be looking back at these multiple times. I'll save this YouTube video, and it's really really important to follow reference. So I hope everyone has like a sense of what it means to look at reference because a lot of times we just say to find reference, but we don't actually figure out details. So I just wanted to do a little video on that. So I hope you guys are using reference more, and I'll see you later.